Hey guys, so today we're going to do the History of the Earth lecture number 2. Remember that if this is the first time that you're watching this video, you should be on Edpuzzle and not in YouTube. So please make sure that you are watching this video in Edpuzzle. Okay, let's get started. So we've been learning about fossils and the geological history of Earth and how people from all over the world have been studying fossils and stratigraphy, which is the layers of the soil, learning that the oldest is at the bottom and the youngest is at the top in the layers of the soil that we look at. And we've been able to determine a lot about the history of our planet using these tools. Well, another way that we've been able to learn about the history of our Earth is studying embryonic similarities. Now, embryos are developing organisms from the time that they're first conceived or fertilized until they're born, either through birth or being hatched from an egg. This is something that we call developing embryos, okay? So before something's born, from the moment that it begins to grow and to the time that it comes out alive, then it is no longer an embryo. Now, when we compare different living things on the planet to each other, when they're adults, they're really different. We're going to look at this example here. In this example, we're looking at a chicken embryo and a human embryo. Really look at those pictures. They have a lot of similarities. But when you compare an adult chicken to an adult human, we have huge differences just in size. They have feathers. We have hair. We are much bigger and have much bigger brains. Our eyes are completely different. The way we eat is different. They have beaks. They don't have teeth. But when you look at our embryos, look at the similarity. You can see the spinal cords. You can see they each have four appendages, four hand-like things and four leg-like things. Theirs are wings, ours are hands, and we can see a lot of similarities. The curves in the shape of the head are similar, maybe different sizes, but similar in structure and shape. Because we have so many embryonic similarities, we might be able to say that we maybe come from a similar evolutionary background. We have similar relatives or similar descendants. Okay? Now, in this picture, we can see that a lot of different embryos share a lot of similarities. One of the main things that we have is a vertebrae, which is a backbone. Okay? In this picture, we see a mouse embryo and a person embryo. And you can see the same thing. The curve, the eye looks really similar. You can kind of see an ear there. Two hand-like looking things, two leg-like looking things, a placental attachment where they connect to their mother from their belly button. What other things do you think you find that make them similar? Now, vertebrae embryos develop similar because we've had similar ancestors, right? Back in our genetic background, as we've evolved as humans, we had different relatives that were the same. When embryos grow, they get rid of some of these. When we're inside our mothers, we actually have gill slits, like fishes, in our neck area. But as we go on through our development inside our mommy's bellies, we change and we lose those gills. Okay? And this happens in a lot of different things. We also have a coccyx bone. We have a little tail when we're inside our moms, but it goes away as our development goes on before we're born. So as I've told you guys before, I always wished I had a tail, and I kind of do, but it's not the kind of tail that I want. Now, because embryos are so similar, and because when we're no longer embryos, we're not as similar to other species, we do a lot of comparisons with embryos to study and see who we're related to and who we're not related to in the tree of life of all living things on Earth. And these developmental homologies, which are similarities, developmental homologies are development similarities. Homo means same, ologies means study of, right? So same studies, developmental same studies. So embryos have a lot of similarities, and these are what they are. Muscle segments, notochord, the dorsal hollow nerve cord, the brain, where the mouth is in relation to the brain, the pharyngeal slits, an anus, and a post-anus tail. And these similarities are very common in vertebrates. Okay? And so when we look at embryos of vertebrates, things that have a backbone, vertebrates are things that have a backbone, we can see all these structural similarities. And because of this, we know we had common ancestors. Now, under normal circumstances, we'd be doing this full-on lab where we'd have these flashcards and we learn about chicken embryos and mouse embryos and we try and figure out which is which. But we're not there. And so let's just talk about it a little bit. Let's look at this image of the chicken. That's the one on top. Look at the stage 1. We see similarities in the formation of the small cells. See how they have similar structure as they develop. When they go from 1 cell to 4 cells to 8 cells to 32 cells, they all look the same. And once they get to something like 64 cells, because they're doubling, right? So we double. 32, 64, 108, 128. We have 3 different layers develop into this little ball of cells, and they start to change into different types of cells because they're all the same kind of cells at the beginning, and then they start to change into different kinds of cells that make up your skin and your muscles and your skeleton and your eyes and the cells that make your hair and the cells that make the cartilage in your nose and ears. And as this starts to develop, we get to different formations. So when we get to stage 2 for the chicken, we're getting a nervous system, a neural trip, the notochord, that band on the back starts to form. And then when we get to stage 3, we have a tail and little nubbies for like our limbs, and our nervous system starts to develop, and our eyes start to develop. The chicken's eyes start to develop. And then nasal pits start to form. And then brain starts to really take off. And then the beginning of egg tooth development. And that's a type of formation that helps them get out of the egg. And they have growth in their embryonic sense. So they're starting to get bigger. They're not developing in different things. They're also growing now. And then finally in the 5th thing, they start getting their feathers. And when we look at the mouse, we see similar formations at different points. If you sit here and take a moment to compare these, you'll see that the formation of the structure starts happening at stage 2. The nervous system for the mouse starts at stage 2, where it really starts much later in the chicken. A mouse is a much more complicated and much closer to human, actually, relative, right? When you think about mice, think about them being closer to being an ancestor of ours, where a chicken is more closer to being a descendant of a dinosaur. And so, even though we're all vertebrates, we all have backbones, we developed in different branches of the tree of life. Now, history of the earth, evolutionary history and relationships. Did you know that birds are related to dinosaurs? I know, blows your minds. So ancestors are organisms that we evolved from in the past, right? One thing you guys hear a lot is that we're like 98% have the same DNA as a chimpanzee. And you've all heard this before. That doesn't mean that we are the same as a chimpanzee or that a chimpanzee is only 2% different than us. There are many more things that make the chimpanzee different than us. When you think about human beings, we have less than 0.1% difference between Jason Momoa and Oh my goodness, I can't think of a pop singer that you guys like. Billie Eilish. Okay? There's less than 1% difference between them and their DNA. And look at the difference between them as human beings. They're completely different sizes, completely different structures, completely different features, right? And so 98% is similar, and we can look at it in the grand scheme of things as similar, but we can't look at it as similar based on small differences. Okay? All right. We're going to watch a short video that I have embedded in here. So let's go. Okay, guys, so I couldn't embed the video. So what I'm going to do is you're going to have 3 Edpuzzle videos for this lecture. You're going to watch this video. You're done with this one now. You're going to go watch the second video where you're going to listen to this guy talk about different things in your environment and how they're related to dinosaurs. And then you're going to watch the third Edpuzzle video, which is going to be the finishing of the lecture. So good luck and enjoy.